Meeting to order. This is the Corpus Christi B Corporation, also known as the Type B Board. Today's Monday, October 18th, 2021. The time I have now is 1:34 p.m. We'll start with our roll call. Ms. Huerta?
President Scott Harris.
Present.
Robert Thames. Diana Summers.
Present.
Leah Oliveri. Lee Trujillo. John Balls. Alan Wilson.
Here.
Michael Hunter is absent. Okay, so we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Item C on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Crickets? Okay. Ms. Huerta, do we have any public comment received?
Not written, no, sir.
Okay. Okay, very well. Next item is our minutes and excused absences. We don't have any excused absences, but for the minutes, approval of minutes from the September 20th regular meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comment or corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion to approve carries. Financial report. Ms. Heather.
Good afternoon, Heather Holbrook, Director of Finance. Next slide, please. So we're almost to the end of the fiscal year. So this is a report for the 11 months ended August 31st. We began the year for the Type B Corporation with almost $8 million in fund balance. We've collected 7.1, almost 7.2 million in revenues in sales from sales tax. We have expenditures year to date of 5.1 with an ending fund balance of almost $10 million. So we do have almost $11 million worth of commitments across affordable housing, economic development, and streets, but many of those are across several years. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, in our affordable housing, we do have a future commitment in fiscal year 22. This schedule does not reflect yet the commitment for the infill housing, and we're taking that to council for an amendment to amend the budget, and so next month we will show that commitment on our schedule. Next slide, please. For economic development.
Ms. Heather.
Yes.
John, did you have a question on
I do. I have a
affordable
question.
housing?
I do. Thank you, Scott. Heather, so, by statute, if you want to call it, we're supposed to commit 500,000 a year, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's the cap, right? 500, up to
Yes,
500?
up to 500,000, yes.
So when we don't have a project, that just continues to roll over and roll
Yes,
over?
yes.
Okay. Are we doing anything to be proactive in trying to, I don't know, recruit, solicit projects, or maybe expedite projects, or projects that are on a shelf somewhere?
Sure.
Revisit those? Because, I mean, the purpose of this is to incentivize, this type of development.
Mm-hmm.
And if this money just keeps rolling over, here we are 5 years down the road, and we've got however much we have in there, 2.5 million, then there's no affordable housing going on.
Exactly.
So are we doing anything I'm sure we are,
Yeah.
but maybe you can help me to understand a little
Sure.
better in how we can basically divest ourselves of this
Sure.
funds
Sure.
annually as we're supposed to.
And the city manager may be able to add a little bit more narrative to this, but I know that in our homeless and housing, Jennifer Buxton, who has joined the city within the last year, is really looking into what those opportunities are. And so I think with this infill housing program that has been brought forward with a new plan, and then has helped, and then now, I know that there are some other projects that are potentially out there that will possibly be coming forward for Type B funds. I don't know if you have anything.
I think that's pretty much sums it up. We have staff in place now that's beginning to develop those program ideas and look for partners that can use some of this money to have more affordable housing in the community.
Okay, so let me ask you, can we go back to that slide
Sure.
on affordable housing?
Go back one slide. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me ask you, so what is our budget for the first-time buyers program? We incentivize that, don't we?
So currently, we don't have any in Type B. There had been a program in Type A.
Yeah, but
That was for first-time housing, but I don't believe that there has been a first-time home buyer program. I know that I believe through some of the home funds and CDBG, there are other first-time home buyer programs that are being allocated, funds are being allocated.
And are they ample funds in there to support that program, or is there not enough interest in that program, thus not the need to fund it with more money?
Yeah, we just, City Council just recently did two things, Commissioner. So City Council did two things. One, we recognize that we have several hundred thousand, I think it's close to $1 million, in 2 prior years CDBG home allocation.
Okay.
And the reason that is available is because the incentive amount was too small, was too little. So I think it was up to $10,000, and that's not enough to close the gap. And so a lot of people weren't taking advantage of it. So council approved policy changes so that the incentive amount can be up to 25,000.
Yeah. Didn't we
And
do
those
that here?
program,
We did that
Yeah.
here, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
it is-
that'll help to make this money more attractive to the first-time home buyer and actually more usable. So those, that's out there.
Okay, and that just started recently, so I would like to see if we could get some kind of an update or a status report, I don't know, 6 months from now?
Sure.
To see if that $15,000 increase is really incentivizing people. Because if it's not, then it's the program.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't bump it up to 50, because then, you're giving it
No,
away.
Yeah, right.
But 10 I can see, 25 is pretty generous.
Yeah.
But if people aren't taking advantage of it at 25, then there's something wrong with the program. Maybe it's the outreach or,
Okay, we're going to,
so.
we'll get that on the agenda in a few months to affordable
Okay.
housing
Yeah.
update. But
Yeah.
let's finish the financial report.
Okay.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So then, within the Economic Development Fund, we have numerous projects that are going on. We are finishing up the ones, I think everything, the USO of South Texas has, I think it's going to be moved over to fiscal year '22. They had requested an extension. South Texas Botanical Gardens, we don't think that that's going to be paid out in '21. That'll probably be moved to '22. The Cole Park Pier was paid out. And then we have programs already, incentives already programmed over fiscal year '22 and '23. Next slide, please. And then our streets, in next year, fiscal year '22, we'll see the payback from streets back over to economic development for the amount that was borrowed from them. And then we do have the $1.2 million that will be available program for the project for Elizabeth Street from Santa Fe to Staples. And so that fund, those funds will be almost fully expended in fiscal year '22. Next slide, please. And then we have received our final month of sales tax reporting. And so we will end the year $615,000 over budget for revenue. And just a reminder, when we did the budget last year, it was really, we weren't sure what it was going to look like as far as COVID and what those effects were going to be. So we took a very conservative approach. And so the funds did end up with an additional $600,000 in revenue. That. Yes, that is for all three of the purposes there, yes. So the affordable housing wouldn't end up with extra revenue because it's a set amount, but then the other two, economic development and the streets, did end up with additional revenue over what we had budgeted. So that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions from the board members at this time, specific to the financial report or the budgets? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we'll move on to our regular agenda item number 3, which is a resolution authorizing a safekeeping agreement with Frost Bank. Do we have a presentation on that?
My apologies, I should not have sat down. No, there is no presentation. What this is we are trying to expand our investment options for the corporation's funds. And so we had been primarily investing the available balances in our intergovernmental pools, which are kind of like a money market for governmental entities. What we want to do is expand that and be able to invest in some agencies, some bonds, things along those lines. And so to do that, we must have a safekeeping account because for governmental investments, we have to settle on what's called delivery versus payment. So we have to have a third party to hold that investment while we match it up with the payment, and then it settles. And so this, you'll see this also on the Type A agenda that we'll have next, and this is just setting up that safekeeping agreement so that we can do some other investments other than just the governmental pools.
Okay. Motion from the banker. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
Sure.
Ms. Oliveri?
So y'all, the city has an investment committee, I assume? And then the city has an investment policy. So
Yes.
basically, just for everybody, you will utilize that council-adopted investment
Yes.
policy to decide on those investments?
Exactly.
Through the committee? Okay.
Exactly. And so, yes, the investment committee does do it on behalf, and we take those agreements to y'all, to the boards, every year to, the investment policy and strategy is taken to the board for approval. It is the same as the cities. And so the city does have a safekeeping, just like, it's required for all of the different entities to have those safekeeping accounts.
Right, I wanted to clarify that
Sure.
we're not relying on the safekeeping or anybody else to make the
No.
investment decisions. It's an in-house decision.
Exactly. Yes, yes. With our investment advisors, with the assistance of our investment advisors.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Valls, did you have a question?
Yes. Heather, so the same will hold true on the type A agenda
Yes.
also? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, it's exactly the same. The pricing's just a little bit different just because of the balances.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes. See no further business on the agenda. I'll call this meeting to adjournment. The time is now 1:45 PM.
Leah Oliveri,
Present.
Lee Trujillo, John Valls, Alan Wilson.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Public comment? Would anyone like to make a public comment on items on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We have any public comments written?
No, sir.
Okay. Item D is our minutes from our August 16th and our August 30th a special meeting on the 30th, regular on the 16th.
Motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Temez. And any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion to approve the minutes is passed. Financial report.
Good afternoon. Heather Hurlbert, Director of Finance. Okay, next slide, please. So these financial statements are for the 11 months ended August 31st. We're almost to the end of our fiscal year. And so the Seawall Fund began the fiscal year with a balance of $44.7 million. We collected revenues, sales tax revenues, along with interest of $7.1 million. Expenditures to date are $22 million, with leaving an ending fund balance of $29.7 million in our Seawall Fund. Next slide, please. Moving on to the Arena Fund. Began the fiscal year with a fund balance of $16.5 million, had revenues to date of $7.1 million. Our expenditures to date are $9.6 million, leaving an ending fund balance as of August 31st of about $14 million. Next slide. And then we have our Economic Development Fund. So we began the year with $6.3 million, and with only revenues of about $303,000, sorry. And just a reminder, this economic development allocation moved to our Type B fund, and so this fund is no longer receiving the sales tax revenue through Type A. We have our expenditures year to date of $1.6 million, with an ending fund balance of 4.6. Of that, we do have outstanding commitments and expenditures of 4.2 million, leaving us an ending fund balance available for commitments of 400,000. Next slide, please. So out of that economic development, we do have the Home Buyer Assistance Program, which we did discuss in our prior meeting, and so there is a remaining balance of $3,000. The fish pond development anticipated to be possibly paid out in '22, along with our Community Development Corporation of Brownsville, which as of right now, we have scheduled for '22, but that may be at a later date. We're following up on the status of that. Yes.
Turn your mic on, please, Mr. Themis.
Yeah. On the Community Development Corporation of Brownsville, what happened to that 154,000?
So right now, it is just committed. We haven't paid anything out.
Okay.
I know that we'd had discussions with Housing, Jennifer Buxton, the Assistant Director. She was going to follow up with them to find out what the status of that program is. I think there had been some discussion that may not go through, and so we're waiting for an update on that.
All right. Thank you.
Can I just add to that? It most likely will be terminated. Because of COVID and other issues, the project's not looking too viable. The city council that was next in line to approve the agreement actually did not approve it, and so that kind of stymied it. But there was pretty strong concern on the council about what type of development would go in that neighborhood. They felt that affordable, especially the plan that the Community Development Corporation of Brownsville had planned, it wouldn't really go well with the community that was there. So I think the conversations have already taken place. And
Okay.
It'll be a matter of time before we have some type of termination agreement.
So our balance will be different?
Yes.
because of that, right?
Yeah, it'll increase by the 154.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me piggyback on that.
Leah, did you have a question on this item?
I have a question about the
Okay.
The commitment to the civil engineering, the engineering program at the university, I think that's predated me being on this board, so it's quite old. And I'm just, it just seems to be pushing out and pushing out and pushing out. And I'm kind of curious if we could maybe get an update on that from them, because every year, I believe that was before I got.
Yeah, isn't there an update today on that?
Yeah. Mike Culberson will be updating the board on all of those economic development programs.
I
and
know,
so-
but I would like the university.
have the university come in?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's my request anyway. I don't know if anybody else agrees.
Okay.
That's good, yeah. It does have a term, I think of 2022 was it had to be all spent by then. But we'll see it on the update when we get to that point. But that's a good point, we'll bring them in.
Okay. And Mr. Valls, did you have a?
Yeah, I did.
question
I
further?
did.
Affordable housing? or-
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Heather, so what, or Peter, if that project isn't going to make it, what's going to happen with that parcel? A piece of, that was an old park, right?
Right, it's still a city park, so we do have several that we're looking at for future use or disposition, so,
Okay,
yeah.
but so it was never transferred over to them?
No,
right?
it
So-
was not,
okay.
right, never was. It's still a city park.
Okay, okay, good enough.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Next slide, please. So in our major business initiatives, we do have multiple commitments, including the new Whataburger Field upgrades that'll be talked about what that project entails today. Next slide, please. And then we have our small business projects that are remaining from fiscal year '21. Several of these are actually calendar year contracts, so the commitment extends past the end of the fiscal year. And so we maintain them, even though it says fiscal year '21, they will remain until the end of the calendar year because those funds do come out of that fiscal year budget. Next slide, please. And so as I spoke to in the type B, again, the fund ended with revenues to the positive above the budget of 1.2 million. And so these are split equally between the Seawall and the arena funds. So that does conclude my presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further questions on our financial report? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're going to do the Frost Bank agreement. So, regular agenda items. Item 3 is resolution authorizing safekeeping agreement with Frost Bank.
Make a motion to approve?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say no. Okay, motion passes.
Good job, Heather.
Should have given it to Randy.
Item 4 on the agenda is a motion approving a project in an amount not to exceed $701,800 for improvements to Whataburger Field. We have a staff presentation. Mr. Randy.
Yes, Chair, board members, Randy Almaguer, Senior Management Analyst. So we did have a few questions on this from several board members. We did bring this back in August of this year, reallocating funding for the Whataburger Field upgrades. Now, what we needed to come back to was the scope of work of what the 701,800 was going to be used for. If you saw in the memo, it's for the field lighting, visitors clubhouse, and the new women's clubhouse. Now, we did invite Brady Ballard back, the GM of the Hooks. If you wanted that presentation, we have about 6-7 slides. If you'd like, I can have him come up here and go into detail. Or if you had any additional questions on that, we can do that as well.
Are there any questions from the board on the Whataburger Field capital improvements? Is it the same presentation we heard in?
It's condensed down.
Okay.
But it was. I know you had a pretty thorough presentation last time, and I didn't want to
Okay,
do it again for y'all like that.
okay. Are there any questions on the scope of work from the board?
I'd like to see it. I think I missed that meeting. Oh, was it the last meeting? Oh, no. I wasn't paying attention. I was in pain. I mean, I'd like to see it again, if y'all don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, can we have that? Okay.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I think I can hopefully just kind of expeditiously touch on a few of these projects. Again, 3 major projects that focus on these PDL requirements, Player Development League, in which we're now being graded for by Major League Baseball. Slide, please. Again, really just talked about the scope of work in the 3 projects. Slide. This is the language that you saw in the first iteration, specifically to the field lighting requirement, and the grading system there in the lower right-hand corner, of which we would currently be out of compliance, and we think even more so based on the fact that this summary survey was done back in 2016. The facility has yet to have one since, and we do expect one in 2021, or into 22, I mean. Slide, please. This simply is the scope of work that we would move forward with to address this. It's an LED lighting system, one that is being done throughout our industry, and a reason we would prioritize this is because there is a line queuing up for facilities such as ours of 120 others. Not to say all need it, but we know we positioned ourselves now. We think we can get this done with the final approval in front of City Council to get it done before the 22 season. Otherwise, it would push further into probably 23 at a minimum. Slide, please. The women's personnel clubhouse requirement, again, it's a small area. It's focused on the increasing number of female staff employees that are umpires, trainers, field personnel. And so we would, this really is the first and current iteration of that locker room space. And slide, please. And we'd simply adjust the space to meet the current requirements, which is the size of lockers and the appropriate number of clubhouse amenities such as shower heads, water closets, and lavatories. But still of the same space, same footprint, just a revision of what's there. Slide, please. Again, the requirement language for the visitors clubhouse, very much what's been put out there both long ago and more recently is the work environment of minor league baseball players. And so what we currently are lacking, we would address with the drawing that is shown on the next slide. And that would enhance not necessarily the space, but some of the allocation of the space within the facility used for dining, strength and conditioning, athletic training, and just a little bit within the clubhouse space itself by increasing for a few lockers. So those are the 3 major projects that we feel per this tiered system that we need to achieve a certain number by 2025, that with the dollars approved thus far and the hopeful remaining dollars of that not to exceed number, we would be very much in compliance a couple years ahead of what's been put in front of us by Major League Baseball.
Thank you, sir.
And I think that completes it.
John, questions?
Yeah, I'll defer to Leah. Just for the record, I was absent when this was presented the last go-around. It was August the 30th, so I wasn't just asleep and not paying attention. I was absent. I wasn't paying attention at home, but thank you.
Can you turn your microphone on, please?
Yeah, when and if the Harbor Bridge relocates, and I know most of your lighting is downward, but it still is lighting in that area, some, the current bridge. Is that gonna affect y'all at all? with the
We don't
move?
think so. Again, to this facility, that lighting will certainly just be directed towards the
Right,
field.
field,
And ours,
yeah.
whether any decorative lighting of the bridge, as we've seen with the old and the new perhaps, I think we all wait to see what the,
Yeah, I mean, it has lighted up the area, which it'll be
Yeah.
behind you now rather than
sure.
that way, yeah.
Yeah, certainly there'll be some lighting that emanates from facility when everything is
Right,
on, but
right.
Nothing, especially based on the height of it and its proximity to
Right,
us, nothing that is, we will be in the shadows of it, not vice versa.
Exactly, it'll be interesting, yeah, okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Lee?
Motion to approve?
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Presentation items. Well, actually, before we move to presentation items, I just have one. I skipped over in item D, our excused absences. Mr. Temez was absent on the 16th of August. Robert, would you like that as counted as an excused absence? No? Okay. Okay, so we're not gonna, we won't,
The policy applies to regularly scheduled meetings, not a special. That was a special.
oh, you gotta buy, John.
We
Okay.
miss more of those.
Okay, so we're not gonna request an excuse, so we don't need to vote on anything. Okay, thank you. So now we'll start with our presentation items. Item 5 is Mr. Edmonds, our engineering quarterly.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services, and I'm going to be presenting our Engineering Services Quarterly Project Update. And I'm just going to scroll through. I've got one slide per project and just give you the current status on the project. So the first one, this is actually complete. We'll probably be dropping this off. This was getting the Bayshore Fountain back up and running, and that was completed. It was in the CIP for $2 million. We completed that substantially below budget, and that was completed actually by the Asset Management Department with a mix of in-house and maintenance contract forces. Next one is the Seawall Capital Repairs project. You've probably seen some of that activity going on down there, and they are very nearly complete with that work. That was miscellaneous concrete repairs, joint sealing, spall repairs, and painting the top step, and installing also skate stops on the top to hopefully discourage some misuse of that structure. Again, that contract came in also well below the budgeted amount in the CIP, and those funds will be going back down to the bottom line when that project's complete. Next project is, we've actually combined two projects there, the McGee Beach breakwater and marina dredging. This is addressing the portion of the breakwater where there's that concrete core wall, and it's also addressing a couple of key areas of complaint over there where shoaling was creating some hazards to navigation. And when we're done, that concrete core is going to be about 2 feet wider, 1 foot higher, and also bring in more of the stone material. It'll provide a little bit better wave sheltering. And if folks wish to go out there and fish, it'll probably be a little bit easier to do so. That project is, I'm going to estimate we're maybe a third the way through on that one. It's still in the early phases. Next project is Salt Flats Levy Improvements. Oops, too far. That project is, we've just opened bids on that, and it's scheduled for award on the 26th at City Council. And lowest bid was submitted by J.M. Davidson. for $900,000. And again, there's good news there on the budget. It's come in well within budget. I've got that at the very end. So the Art Center project, that one is approaching complete design. We're at 90% design level on that, and hope to get that advertised probably before the end of the year. Art Museum.
Can I ask a question about that? I understand that the electrical system that they use for the food trucks, the plug outside or something, blew up. Do you know if that's included in here? Are they
I
talking to you
don't,
about
but I can
that?
get you that answer.
Well, I mean, I just want to make sure we talk to them if there's a possibility that it apparently.
Was that a recent thing, or is that something?
I think pretty recent, sometime in the last 3 months or so. I heard that they can't
Okay.
do the plug-in out in front. You know.
I'll check on that. It
I
would
don't
be
know.
a pretty easy thing to add that at this
Yeah,
point.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And I'll get back with you and let you know what we find. Art Museum, it's same level, it's 90% design. And again, as soon as we get those completed, we'll be putting that out for a bid. And both of those projects, you may remember, we type A funded condition assessments of those two facilities. And then based on the deficiencies that we discovered in those assessments, we're putting together a bid package to get all of those deficiencies corrected.
Jeff, wasn't there a problem with the, on the side of the building that is hit by the water, by the bay?
On the Art Museum?
Yeah. Wasn't there a problem?
It's actually kind of designed that way. I know they had some problems with some stuff that was stored in there, but it is built essentially on top of the seawall. And so that was kind of a known design feature, if you will, that anything stored at that level was going to be vulnerable in a storm event. But I'm not aware of that actually causing any damage to the building itself. Okay, the next one is the Marina Pierce A, B, C, D, and L replacement and dredging. That project is also under design, and we're at 90% design level, and we'll be advertising that for bids as soon as we get those final project documents submitted.
That hasn't started, right?
The design has, the construction hasn't.
Construction, yeah, okay. Because the cranes
So-
that we see and the work that has been done, the dredge and all that's from the south side, right? Of the
You're
marina?
talking about the project that's under construction right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, the only dredging that was doing, there were two areas of shoaling that were kind of in the navigation lanes out towards the breakwater, that it was, the shoaling was impinging on the traffic lanes, if you will. Those are what we're going to dredge with this current project. The dredging that's going to be included in this project, in the pier replacements, are the areas around the slips and the docks. And according to the marina, a lot of these slips have limited usefulness because the draft is so shallow there that there's a lot of vessels that you can't put into the slip. So as they're doing those docks, they're also going to be dredging out those slip areas so that they can get maximum use out of renting those spaces out.
Jeff, is there a fuel station incorporated to these improvements?
No, there is not.
There's none at all? There's
No, but it's on our marina manager, I think you've met him before, Jonathan Atwood. He's working on that as an operational item. So there's a couple of choices. One, we can install our own, but it's pretty pricey, and the model in most marinas is to have a third party or a second party do so. So he's pursuing that, plus seeing if there's a current tenant on one of the T-heads that would like to take over that business. So he's simultaneously looking at both aspects. One, is there somebody he knows I don't want to disclose it here, but he knows of a current business on the T-head that would want to do it.
Okay.
And then 2 is seeing if there's any other parties out there would want to come
So we're
back and
looking
do
for a
it.
third party basically to come in and operate.
Right.
Implement, install, and.
Yes, right. Right now, we do bring the fuel truck in. We do that once a Saturday, once a week. So a fuel truck on the highway comes in, and people know that they can refuel their boats that way. But we do need to get one in. It's an important part of that business. So
When do you think that'll happen, Peter?
it should be within the next 3 months, I would imagine, because he's been working on it all summer. So
Good, thank you.
yes, sir. Mm.
Mr. Valls, did you have a question on
Yeah,
the marina?
Yeah, I did. It's not just the marina, it's some of the other signature projects like, Cole Park. And when the Type A is funding a good percentage of these projects, is the Type A board or just the Type A corporation getting recognized, either on the monument plaque or
Right.
whatever? That way folks know that the funding is coming from either the A or the B program. Because a lot of people don't know what we do or what the A and what the B is. So,
Yeah, in fact, we looked at a prototype of one of the plaques for Cole Park, and this corporation's on there.
okay,
Yep.
okay, good.
Same for the, it'll be the same for the marina as well.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, good enough.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, this next one is the Water Garden project, which you may recall was restored to the CIP this time, so that funding became available October 1st. Earlier this year, we put out a solicitation as a design build. We only received one response, and staff is reassessing how to go back out and generate more interest in this project.
You on the water garden slide? Can we move ahead one slide?
Oh, my apologies. That's how it'll look when we get done. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I was looking at that project, that slide.
That was just to trip you up. No, the water garden, you might recall, last year, we came in and based on the engineer's estimate for the design that we had, that we advertised early last year, we got no bids, but we did get some estimates on that design as it existed at the time, and we tried to get that added into the CIP. And you may recall this board was not comfortable funding the project at that level, and we went into kind of limbo until we went back to the drawing board on the design, and we come up with a more economical approach that we think strikes a better balance between function and economy. And we got that restored to the Type A CIP on this current CIP that came effective October 1st. So earlier this year, we, based on that sort of concept design, we didn't have a full-blown design on that, and we put it out as a design build, which is more of a qualifications-based competition, but we only got one response, and we weren't comfortable moving ahead with that, and at this time, we're looking at how to generate some more interest in this project.
Go ahead, John. You have a
Okay,
question?
thanks. Yeah, Jeff, you could go back to the water garden. So the original estimate was roughly 10 million, close to 10 million?
It was 10 million for both, so it was,
Right.
we had 2 million for the bayfront and 8 million for the water garden.
Okay, yeah, we did not have a comfort level of taking this to council because we knew council didn't have a comfort level in approving that amount. So getting it down to 4.5, there's a lot of value engineering there. How did it come down so significantly? Is anything being excluded, eliminated, or, I mean, how can we now do it for 4.5 when before it was just over 8?
Well, you're doing something different
Okay.
at this point. So we were having a large site-built pump house, and we had put in redundant pumps. We'd also lowered the elevation of the sump so it could drain the entire feature. We thought that provided value because you'd have probably 99+% up factor, because if you had problems with the pump, you could remove pump and it would still be in full operation. You'd send that to the manufacturer, and probably not going to have another pump problem before that comes back. Anyway, it had full redundancy built in. It was going to be a lot easier to operate and maintain than it was under the original, but the criticism was that, this was really more than we needed for this type of facility. So now what we're doing is we're bringing all the electrical equipment up, but some of the mechanical equipment is staying in the vault. We've taken out the redundancy, the full redundancy, so it's going to need all the pumps up and running for it to be fully functional. We're going to some prefab buildings.
Above ground?
Above ground.
Okay. I mean, this is a signature feature of our community, especially our Bayfront area. And I'd hate to see another spring or summer go by where this thing is just not working. I can understand in the winter, it not necessarily being operational, but in the spring and the summer, I mean, a lot of people go down to that area. I mean, I take my kids, we go to the art museum, quite a bit. And when we see that thing is not operational, it gives us a black eye. So I hope that, you have, and I'm sure you do, you've got a plan to try and get this thing up and running as quickly as possible. And with there only being one response to the bid, not a lot of firms do design build. I mean, what was wrong with that one response? And when are you going to be putting it back out for bid so that we can get this thing going? We can swallow 4.5. 8 had a lot of heartburn, but how do we get this thing fast-tracked, or how do we get it moving? That was a lot of questions in that one statement, but what was wrong with the one response? Okay, now, if you're not happy with that one, where are you in the process of rebidding, and what if you get no responses? Then what do we do? Because I don't imagine the one response is going to want to bid again, because they're not going to want the heartburn. Maybe they do, but where are we in this process? You've got it in our CIP, so is that something you can answer or you cannot answer?
I'm not sure I'm the appropriate one to answer.
Yeah, he can answer it. So what we're doing is, because
We're going to let him answer.
well, I'll answer it for him. So
Okay.
we're working to try to get more interest, right? We had one bid, especially because this is a design build, so the builder is going to be the designer, right? So in some models, you have a design firm, they design it, then you put it up for bid. So this is a kind of a cross check, right? But this will be the same firm that designs it, that builds it. So we want to make sure there's some competition and evaluating firms, so we can pick one that
Was the RFP put out as a design build?
it was, yes, sir.
Okay.
So one thing
And
that
you
wasn't
anticipate more firms to submit?
There was some level of outreach that's traditionally done, but a project like this, as high profile as it is and as costly as it is, we encouraged our purchasing staff to do even more outreach, and that's what they've done in recent times. So now, it should be soon, we're going to put it back out for bid, with the hopes that we'll get more than one bidder. That way we can confirm with the council that there was a rigorous process. If in the end there's still only one bidder, then so be it, but at least we can say that as part of the process, we did extensive outreach, and that's what we've done recently.
Well, I mean, I agree that it's a signature project, but
Right.
it's not a significant dollar amount.
Yeah,
I mean, in the contracting world, that's not very big.
right.
But, now that we have it in our CIP, whatever we need to do to get this thing moving. And it's not something that city staff can do, Public Works can't do this?
No, we don't have the technical expertise or the staff to do it.
And when you say design build, was there any design work incorporated in bringing the dollar amount down from
Yeah.
8-something down to 4.5?
We had like a conceptual design that we published with the solicitation.
Like 30%, Jeff, or something?
Correct,
It's
around a 30% level design.
Yeah, it's only at 30%, so the firm that we hire has to finish the design and then build
Okay.
it.
Okay, well, I mean, I know you guys know what you're doing, but hopefully you're
Yeah.
getting it back out on the street, and let's see
Yeah.
if we get any additional responses so that
Right.
we can move this forward.
Exactly.
Jeff, how long has it?
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks,
been,
Peter.
How,
How long has it been operational?
inoperational? Since shortly after Hurricane Harvey, which would have been in late
Over 3 years.
2017.
It's a long time for a project like that to be stalled. I'd like to see it as soon as possible, because we have a lot of tourism coming through there. so.
Of course, I know Jeff remembers when 1.7 was a big number for that project. So, I mean, it's come a long way as far as discussion and authorization, from 1.7 where we spent 2 million for the front part. So now that we're at 4.5, I think maybe there's some opportunity. I'd like to see it done, at least awarded within the next year, next fiscal year, get started.
But what's your target? Yeah, I mean, that's a little too long. I'd like to see it awarded within the first quarter of next year. The next fiscal year is 12 months from now.
Yeah, that
So
would be great.
I'd like to see if we can get that going first quarter of '22, because then that gives you enough time to complete it for the summer.
I think their schedule was a year, Jeff, was it? Or
It is probably
Well,
going to
and
be at least that
it's
long.
probably going to miss this summer again. We're going to probably miss this spring and summer.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
So we'll have
Well, we've been working on this for quite a while, because I remember this was what caused us to have the workshop, the joint workshops with the council, because we weren't on the same page here. That was a long time ago. And we're still talking about this, and we're gonna go another season.
About,
Well, the big holdup is going to be delivery of equipment, and some of that equipment, pumps and
Yeah.
some of the switchgear and things like that, it can take 6-8 months
Yeah.
delivery.
Yeah, well. So when are you planning to put it out for bid again? What's your timeline?
like, it should have been out so soon. As soon as Jeff's ready to go, I think we're ready, Jeff. Yeah.
I'm ready. I think we'll just,
Yeah.
we need to get together with contracts procurement and see what changes we want to make on the solicitation, the way it was advertised.
I mean, I'm not speaking for the board, but I think quite a few of us have already kind of expressed our interest in trying to move this thing along. I don't know what you guys think, but
Acknowledged. I'm hearing you loud and clear.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Jeff, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next one is, these are the new projects that showed up in the new CIP. These projects are going to be on an RFQ that's being released possibly by the end of the month, if not early next month. That's the boat held-out facility, the new Cooper's Boaters facility, and repairing the People's Boardwalk.
Is this part of the 15? No, right? No,
Part of the
15 million? That, for the marina?
No, there was 4.15 million in the current year of the CIP. And then it had an additional 9.88 that was planned for next year. Of course, that hasn't been approved, but
From the Seawall funds?
from Seawall funds.
Thank you.
Okay, and then this is the last slide that the manager wanted to see. Of course, this is the Type A board, but I figured it was Type B funding that went in Cole Park Pier, but since you're the same folks, I thought I'd put this slide in here too. So if you've been by there, you've probably seen a lot of activity over the last few weeks, really taking shape. We're expecting to be fully complete next month, and it's moving along very well now. So, and that was a $5 million contribution from Type B to the construction of this project.
Been done quickly.
Pardon me?
Been done quickly.
Yeah, this contract is great. This is the same one that's doing the salt levee flats, right? J.M. Daniels?
Yeah, they've been.
So they even working on Sunday. I saw them this Sunday. They know sometimes they can't work during the week because even the wave action will preclude them. But they make up that time on the weekends, which is unusual for a contractor. So they're doing a real good job.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. It's a little bit different than your normal projects, where the normal projects get shut down a lot for rain. This one, it's been more wind where they have to shut down.
Well, let's send this crew our water garden project. And
Yeah.
see what they come up with.
I don't know if that's in their strike zone. Well, and that's the end of my slides, and
Well, yeah, can I add just one other one? So for the Cole Park Pier, the city council is planning a kind of a bigger than normal grand opening, and we'll invite you all. So it's going to be kind of a community celebration. where there'll be a ribbon cutting, but there'll be festivities, and it'll be much more of an elaborate opening to the community for this signature project. So we know that this is a big funding amount that came from your all's decision, so we'll make sure you get the invite. We're still finalizing dates and kind of the preliminary agenda, but that'll be coming. I just want to put it on your radar.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Before we close, Mr. Vols, did you have a
I do. I have a comment, or a question, actually. Jeff, who's overseeing this project from the engineering side or from the project management side?
Well, so the way that our operation works is that normally when a project requirement comes in, we assign a project manager that's more closely involved in the day-to-day activity. And in the initial phases, they work with scoping the project and then getting an AE selected and getting them under contract to design the project. And so we call that the project management division. So Ratna Potamutu is my assistant director over that division. And then once we award a contract and have a pre-construction meeting, the baton is kind of handed off to the construction management division. And Brett Van Hazel is the assistant director over that division, and they kind of managed it through the construction phase. So Thomas Klein was PM that was working with us on this on the front end. I ought to be able to tell you our inspector, it escapes me right now, but the construction is being managed under Brett Van Hazel's supervision.
Okay. Well, kudos to you and your team, because y'all are doing a fantastic job on this project. It's moving along. And Peter, I don't know if it's your office, but the messaging that y'all send out as far as updates are concerned are fantastic, because, I mean, this thing is like, wow. I'm like, wow, they're that far ahead already?
Yeah.
You know, so y'all are doing a great job on managing this project.
Well, and I'll
So,
tell you,
thank
it's
you.
a whole lot easier when you have a good contractor. We have a real good, real responsive contractor on this one.
See if they can do the water garden. Okay,
I'll ask them.
yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay. Next item on the agenda is quarterly report from the Regional Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Culbertson.
All right, I don't know if I can follow that, but it's good news. I was an aerospace engineering graduate and an accountant, so stand by. It's going to get worse. So, all right, Mike Culbertson with your Corpus Christi EDC here with good news. We have, we're going to go over the project so you have an idea of where we are. Del Mar College Process Technology, they have about 600,000 remaining, or actually Randy just approved another fund for 200, so now they're at 400. You should have gotten an invite to their open house on the 25th at 10 o'clock on the West Campus. The nice thing is West Campus is full, so when you pull in, there'll actually be room for you to park there on the circle. So, you know, you don't have to go looking for all the other parts. They're doing well. They have until 2023 to finish, but they should be finished this year. Of course, you know, my dog Yet, my cat She, you know, COVID and all these other things has delayed them, obviously, but they are ready, and so they're ready to go. And then what you'll see is what the Type A has done all this time as the glycol and the process technology and the millwright and all of that stuff has come through. So you will not see that anywhere else, okay? Coming up through international consulting engineers, they're doing fine. 90% of their business is outside. One of the things, and I know that you know and Peter knows, that when COVID hit and business started going down, governmental entities started throwing out, you know, their CPE, you know, their capital budget to get people back to work. So they never dropped. In fact, they added people. So they're doing fine. They're in their new building. You ought to go by. It's on Saratoga. They're doing well. A&M industrial and civil engineering is doing well. They have about 1.5. They have until December 31st of 23 to finish. The way we do this, in case you're wondering, like, you know, how do you do the compliance on this? So we actually went in and said, what are you going to do? Because I was getting invoices, and I'm like, what does this mean? And so we actually went through with Dr. L.D. Chen and started putting this is this lab, this lab, this lab, and then this is what is going to be in there. So I could better check and better ensure that. And if you've ever been to their other labs, the electrical engineering, you will see a big plaque that says type A, as is required. And he puts it in all the agreements as is required for all of them. So you will all see them. And you'll see that if you show up on Monday at Del Mar. Okay, we're going to talk about La Vista Point real quick. La Vista Point is, now they call it Mine Lighthouse. If you go to Mine Lighthouse, they are leasing now. People are living there. They still have some ways to go. They believe they'll be done by the end of the year and the requirement is a certificate of occupancy on all buildings, including the lighthouse, and at least, and we can reimburse up to $625,000 for that, and they're already over that. Just so you know, they have an annual report requirement that they have to turn in, and they're already past that. Just real quick, the soccer fields, they were waiting for the crop to come in, and the farmer took the crop, so they're getting ready to do. They also did, I don't have that on there. They also did, bought 4 additional acres on that side of the street, so they don't have the parking problem. Now, they still have that on the other side, but, remember we talked about, okay, if we're going to do this, you have to put fences up so people can't, go running across, and jaywalking. And who gets hit the most, jaywalkers or people who have the right-of-way? People who are in the right-of-way. Because jaywalkers know they're breaking the law, so they're hyper-vigilant. And people who don't, they're just walking across. Oh, those are type B, so forget those two. I didn't mean to do that. All right, so let's talk about the small business. Remember the small business, we went from type A to type B. Let's talk big picture first. We're kind of struggling trying to find what we can do for small businesses. The biggest problem with small business is just number of people that they can employ or that can come in, and then also customers, and operating their business with reduced sales, and that is everywhere. We went out with a survey that I'll share with you later with the Del Mar Small Business Development Center, with SCORE, with Lift Fund, with Texas A&M, with Del Mar's intern, all of those, and that's to a person what we're looking at. There's some talk about bonding, maybe getting a help with bonding, but really is mostly lack of employees and lack of business. And that is just something that we have to work on. Lift Fund obviously didn't do very well. It had 4 businesses. I don't want to say that they help 4 businesses. They help 4 businesses with your money, okay, which is loans, and then you do the buy down. They helped a lot of businesses because, number one, because you brought up the money for loans so that they could make it through, and then you help pay for 6 months of those loan payments, which was, we sit there and we go, okay, we need 3 months, we need 6 months to get these people by, and now we're in the 19th month of all of this. I mean, it's just really hard on everybody. There was a lot of money that came free through the Fed, and I'm not talking about the PPP or the other loans that small businesses could apply for, which is why Lift Fund pushed them toward that, because the federal loans was only for so long, and so they really pushed them toward that. And when you take a look at the budget, they're down to 49.3 for next year. So we'll see where they go. We have Service Corps of the SCORE's done very well. They were able to pivot. They have they actually pay back like $1,500 of their grant. They used it all besides that, and they've done very well. They're looking at how to do other things to bring more people in. They've gone from all in person to all online to hybrid. So one of the things I think that they're finding is it's difficult for a small business to leave the office. But if you can just sit down for lunch, turn on your computer, and get this good information, that's one of the things they do. And they're up, and they're, of course, has 70,000 for next year. The interns, I'm going to talk about the interns really quick because they haven't, now remember, this goes until December 31st, so this is not the complete. But Del Mar is finding that they can't get interns into small businesses. The small business went out of business, or they didn't bring any more interns, or they didn't take any on this year, so they haven't had very much. While A&M has been able to place a lot of interns, but their hours haven't been what they've done. So that's why they're lower too. But you can see Del Mar's at 16 and A&M's at 59. So they've been able to, and you know, maybe it's a little different because when you get an accounting person out of A&M, you know, they're already through cost accounting probably, you know, in their junior year, and in Del Mar, you know, they just started, you know, whatever bookkeeping or things like that. So those are the things we're looking at. A&M thinks that they'll rebound well, depending on, you know, that the thing. Del Mar is still pushing hard. They're pushing hard, and I appreciate that. They're actually under the SBDC this next year as they come through. PTAC's done well. It's helped a bunch of people, 356. They have $90 million in contracts. That doesn't sound, you know, like great when you listen to some of these, but I mean, for small business, $1 million contracts, $2 million, you know, 800,000. That's a really big deal. So they'll use all of theirs, and they're doing fine. Same with CRC. CRC, we're really trying to get out and push. We, the EDC, are pushing through our business retention and expansion person that's coming in, and they're to see what procurement the local industries have. And I'm talking about big industries, and you know they have set asides, you know they have small business, so you know we're trying to capture that. And as we know, as you know, or probably should know, once you get in their system, you're really well off. But it's just getting into their system, which is the most difficult part. The Small Business Development Center, thank you very much for approving that. I think it's one of the most important things that you do here, besides the drones, which is type B, so I won't talk to you about those great people that did that. But it's really important when you take a look at what they do all over in there for counseling, for helping people get through, for helping people get started. When I first got to the EDC, we had this big web page, and it was about small business, and it says, how do you know you're an entrepreneur? And I'm like, why do we have this? Why do we have this? You have Del Mar, you have experts over here, right? Let's point them toward there. Let's, you know, what are we going to say? Well, you know, if you have $150 million, we can get you a tax abatement, you know. So we really need to push all of that.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Real quick. Mr. Wilson, you have a question?
Mike, given your conversation about the difficulty in actually helping small business, trying to figure out how to do that, I was just curious. We have the Small Business Development Center, we have SCORE, and we have the LIFT Fund. To what degree do those three cross-pollinate? Is there a way they could work better together that perhaps would?
I don't know if there is a way. LIFT Fund, of course, is embedded in the SBDC. They have offices right there, and they're pushed toward that. Okay. And SCORE's. So we meet. You know, we meet this group of Debbie Fernandez with SCORE, Laura Strada from LIFT Fund, and then Ann Farova, and Lenora gets involved a lot, which is impressive because, you know, I know she has a lot on her plate. But we talk a lot, a whole lot. Yeah. SCORE has a little bit of difference because, you know, they're ones just trying to push information out, while LIFT Fund and SBDC, you know, have actually assets or resources that they can point to and help them out. So
where does SCORE meet?
Service Corps of Retired Executives.
No, where do they meet?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
They usually meet in the SBDC when they have a thing, but they are actually on SPID at the Small Business at the SBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
So, and we're trying to get a meeting together, and I know you're bringing an economic developer on for small business, and this is where, you know, we're going to get them in. And one of the reasons we were going to do the survey is just to see where we were. The other is, this is great because we can just hand it to them and say, hey, this is what we're doing, and we'll be in the round. We used to call it the Gang of Four, you know, with Ann and myself and Laura, and so we'll expand it to the Gang of Five. Not the Chinese Gang of Five and Madame Mao, but you know what I mean. All right, questions? I'm ready.
Do we have any further questions? Okay. John?
Mike,
You
can you go back?
don't have to feel the need to say, I can just sit down without you asking one. But.
Okay, can you go back a couple of slides to one more? Okay, like this one, the Contract Resource Center. So we approve 133,000, but only 61 has been paid out, 71,000 remaining. So this expires 12/31. What happens to the balance of the funds?
It automatically reverts to the general fund, and you can, general fund of the type A, and you
Okay,
can.
I'm asking, I know the answer to the question, but
Oh.
I'm asking you.
Oh, you're
So-
testing me, okay.
Right, no,
All right,
so
I
that
get it,
everybody
sure.
can hear. So that money comes back to us, and then what do we do with it? Because that's happening on several different.
Right. You'll see a lot of
groups
that.
here.
Del Mar,
Are we
Lift
gonna have
Fund.
a?
Lift Fund, you're gonna get what, 120, 130
Yeah.
back?
Peter, are we gonna do a budget amendment or something? Reprogram this money somewhere, put it to work?
Yeah, it could be, so, we could look for similar programming, but it goes back into the economic development, pot, so.
Yeah, I
any-
mean, I know it comes back to us because
Yeah.
it's not spent, but there's several of them where we're grossly overstating.
Right.
Yeah.
Within the budget in the first place. So next year, like, for example,
So Lift Fund went from 150 to
okay,
49.
go forward, right, the next one. Okay, so like right here, for the Del Mar College Intern Program, maybe next year, we need to budget, if we're only paying out 16,000, have a little cushion, 25,000.
Right.
You know, the
Yeah.
budget needs to be more
We've done that,
closely
right.
aligned with actual. Unless we think it's gonna, maybe post-COVID, if we get that far, gonna, you know, take off again or not. But,
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of money that's gonna come back to us, especially from the Lift Fund, that we should put to work. I don't know where y'all wanna put it, but let's figure out somewhere to do a budget amendment to put that money to work somewhere else.
So, you know, we are aware that those monies are there. So for Whataburger Field, actually, you know, they requested almost $1.1 million. And so in the background that we provided today with that program is that we anticipate seeing what is left over at the end of the year and then actually seeing what we can fund between the 700,000 that we awarded to them and the 1.1 million. But to your point, we have been working with the EDC on these small business contracts, and we have lowered a few of them to get more closely match with how they're spending it. It has been kind of a wild card with COVID.
Right.
And so we haven't gone through and really cut those programs. We'll see how they operate as we come out of COVID, and then, yes, try to more closely match the contracts with what they actually spent in the prior fiscal year.
Okay, good enough. Thank you, Heather.
Okay.
Ms. Olivari, do you have a question for?
Yeah, I
City
just,
or-
Heather, I think you were just using an analogy, but I didn't want people to misunderstand that we were going to take this kind of money and use it on Whataburger Field, right?
No, that was when when we came to the board last month, when we presented
Right.
it. That is the.
But the balance fees don't necessarily go to Whataburger Field, is
No,
all
it goes
I'm
back into the
Right.
fund
I
balance,
just wanted
yes.
to make sure that
Yes.
we have not made that decision.
No, we have
that
not made that
yeah.
decision, and that's something that is a future item for consideration by the
that's what I-
board
yeah.
as these contracts close out.
Okay.
Yes.
So I do have one comment, and one of them is that it's just occurred to me listening to you, Mr. Culberson, that potentially we kind of wait for business. I know y'all try to advertise, but we kind of wait for businesses to come to us. And I think some of the things I think the city's trying to do with more direct economic development outreach to new small businesses is the path forward. I mean, you know, somebody opens a meat market. Do they know about us? Do they know the resources we might put to work? The other thing y'all might want to think about is some kind of portal presence that is like a small business marketplace, where a whole bunch of businesses could advertise. I'm not suggesting you get involved in their purchases or anything like that, but just a way for them, because for most of them, it's just visibility that's a huge problem for them. I mean, they don't have any business because nobody knows they're there, and by the time they know they're there, they're out of business. So the third thing is the chamber. They seem to sometimes be able to gather the new businesses, newer businesses in, and I'm not quite sure how. I mean, I know Del Mar certainly is ex officio and the city on the chamber board, but are we tracking sort of with their smaller businesses that are coming in? Even if they don't join the chamber, they find out about them sometimes. I don't know how, but I think it's just maybe you gotta go out and grab them. That's all.
Thank you.
Sorry. Another good resource is the comptrollers, state comptroller, because most businesses are going to apply for some type of business license, whether it's a sales tax permit, franchise permit, whatever. But every month, you can probably get from the local comptroller's office a report of, who's completed applications for a new business. And I bet a lot of them are just going to be mom and pops working out of their house.
Last time that there was a database, Socrates, that the state had, they did away with it in 2016, but we used to I downloaded it, and it was really hard because it's in like a Word format, so I had to do slice and dice. But I mean, basically the Corpus Christi is in thirds. There's the really big ones that that they have about a third of the people. The middle, which actually think law offices, medical, things like that, and then small business. They were actually a third in each. So, but small business, you have to be really careful because the last time we checked, there were 8,700 small businesses in Corpus Christi, and my wife had one. She's a PhD, and she wrote a textbook, and so she had a business. And of the 8,700, something like 3,000 had no employees at all. So, I mean, they were a business, and if you took a look at it, go, wow, we have 8,000, you don't. You just have people. But anyway, we would sort that. But that's the way it works. So, obviously, in bad times, small businesses lay off early, and when it comes back up, hire late, and the larger businesses just keep working, just keep going. So, which was really lucky. I do compliance on Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, and I was up in the Woodlands, and come to find out, this was the only project that ExxonMobil had that continued construction during I mean, it's not like they have tons of them, but that continues construction during COVID. So imagine 13,000 people out of work, 13,000 more. So.
Thanks, Mike. Ms. Summers, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, going back to the intern program, I know a big concern for business owners is finding the right qualified workforce, finding workers to come. Looking at the grants that we've paid on these intern programs, is it possible to do a third program for interns from other schools that maybe aren't in Corpus Christi, but that these colleges don't offer, to attract them to the market?
I'll talk with Amy about it.
But yeah, I mean, I know we brought in an intern, but it was from a San Antonio school because it wasn't a program that was offered here, but it was something that we needed. But it might be a way to attract different workforce to the area.
Well, we'd have to have an agreement with that school.
Right, the job training programs would have to be done through a college or university, and then the jobs would of course have to be here, so we would have to figure out the logistics on that. But that doesn't mean it's not possible, it's just a logistical situation.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, we'll talk.
Okay.
All right.
We good? Everyone?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Item I on the agenda is Executive Director comments.
We have none relating to the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. There being no further business, I'll call this meeting to adjournment. The time is now 2:48 PM.
Scott, what,